Great to be here with you, Alexander. Grew up in Birmingham, United Kingdom, in Worcester now. Business psychologist, trainer, and coach. Let's start with just tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your childhood looked like.
Yeah. So, as you said, grew up in Birmingham, so the heart of England, second city. Um, Grew up idolizing all the greats, so Arnold and everybody else, and wanted to be just like them. But at 5'6", it's never going to happen. But always interested in the gym, always interested in being active, so heavily into rock climbing. Uh, but just didn't have the genetics, if you like, to be one of those mass monsters and those big guys. Started playing rugby at 19 as well in the local area, and then moved to Worcester at 19, 20. So that was basically my active involvement there.
Tell us about your 4 years in the Army.
Yeah, so once I'd moved to Worcester and established myself here, I was at the local gym and working just in a local retail store. Then at 25, I was at a bit of a crossroads where I was thinking, okay, well, I'm in the gym. I love the nutrition. I love the training. I love seeing the results on myself. I'd already had people in the gym coming over to me and sort of saying, "Oh, well, can we train with you because you seem to know what you're doing?" And I thought, well, maybe I can make a career out of this. So I went to the careers office, the Army careers office, and I said, "Listen, guys, I'm at this crossroads. I'm 25. Um, no kids, so no, but I feel like I want to be a personal trainer, but can I do that in the Army?" And they were like, "Yeah, absolutely. The world is your oyster. Like, you can sign up, and you're an older guy, so that'll be an advantage for you. You play rugby already. You can do all these other things." And I was like, "Oh, fantastic, brilliant." So I signed up, and they said to me, "Yep, as soon as you get to the regiment, just let them know that you want to be a personal trainer." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, perfect." Did my proactive thing, went and got all the dates for the course when I got to the regiment after finishing basic training and phase 2 training. And they said to me, "Who are you? You've only been here 5 minutes. That's not how it works." And I was like, ah. And then it suddenly dawned on me that the careers office just needed bums in seats. And they'd sold me the dream. And I went running in with open arms to capture the dream that unfortunately did not become a reality. However, within that 4 years, I got to play rugby for the regiment. They said, "We need some guys to ski for the regiment." So my hand went up straight away. Not that I could ski, I'd never been on the slopes ever. And they said, "No problem. You go out for 6 weeks. We'll give you all the gear. And by the end of it, you'll be racing slalom, downhill, and super G." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, let's see what happens." So out we go to Verbier out in Switzerland, and all the other armored corps regiments. So I was part of the armored corps. My regiment's 1 RTR, or what is now the RTR, so the Royal Tank Regiment. And we were going against all of the other regiments in the armored corps. And there was eight groups from those that were already really good at skiing, all the way down to group 8, which was me, that couldn't even do the snowplow properly to help you to slow down. But by the end of it, they got me there, and I competed in a slalom race. I competed in the downhill race, and I competed in the Super G race. So that was obviously a fantastic experience. Then in 2011, the guys came. Some of the seniors were like, "Listen, we need 20 blokes from the regiment to join the military working dog unit to go out on tour in 2012." And so, yeah, I put my hand up because although I don't lead with that as a something within the fitness or business world, because if you haven't been in the military, me talking about it a lot is like, okay, well, it's a nice story, but I can't relate to it. So I'm not one of those people that's like, "Oh yeah, I've been in the army. I can teach you the military mindset or the military code of conduct to help you in your business or your habits." Or because it's not relatable unless you've done it yourself. However, I did not want to come out as a plastic soldier. So went off Afghanistan for 6 months from April to October, with 2 weeks off in between that in 2012. 2013 is when that career came to an end. I was like, yeah, that's me done. I'm out of here.
And then you got involved with personal training right after that.
Yeah. So again, it was still a dream of mine to be a personal trainer. So when you've done your 4 years, the military will fund you to do level 3 courses. And the typical one from my regiment was to go off and become a BT engineer or something, because we're working on tanks, Challenger 2 tanks. It was something that would lean into that. So, some sort of engineering level 3 course. And I was like, no, I want to do personal training. And they were like, absolutely. So they funded me for that. They allowed me to go off and do my 6 weeks level 3 personal training course. And then straight in, joined the local gym, became their personal trainer, was able to use my previous retail experience, which was sales, which put me in good stead. Where I did one-to-one personal training, I did nutritional programs, I did group classes, so a spin instructor, studio classes, set up my own evening class at the local church. You can hire the church out for a few pounds per hour. So I used to do that as well. And then one of my clients at the first gym that I was at was super strong, like beyond strong. And she was incline leg pressing 290 kilos. I mean, I know your pounds, but just times that by 2. So 580 pounds for reps. And I was like, right, you're wasted here at the gym. Let's go to the gym that I trained at, which was more of a bodybuilding strongman gym, and let's just see how strong you are. So I put her on a few bits of equipment, spoke to one of the local guys who ran a local strongman, strongwoman competition, an annual one, and just in her practice of deadlifting, so she'd never deadlifted heavy before. Her PB finished at 130 kilos for one. And we were like, oh yeah, we're onto something here. So we entered her into the local strong woman competition, 6 events, squats, tire flipping, deadlifting, overhead press, a couple of other events. And she won 5 out of the 6. Now, for me, it's good form, good technique will eventually get you stronger. I'm not worried about doing a PR every single lift or every single set if it means your form and technique go out of the window, because that leads to injuries. So the whole time that we were training for that competition and the 2 competitions thereafter, because she'd qualified to go into the regional and then did so well in that one, that qualified her for England's strongest woman. No injuries at all, at 0 injuries. And that's something I'm quite proud of. But as well, with the personal training, with my military background, I helped people get ready for basic training. So I worked with a couple of clients to make sure that they were ready for that. And then they went on and actually passed military basic training and got into the army as well.
After personal training, you mentioned active listening for well-being. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I'm working in the gym, and my mom turned around to me. My mom's a counsellor and mental health nurse by background, and also an academic. And she said, "Have you ever thought about setting up your own business?" And I said, "Well, I'm kind of doing that now." And she went, "No, no, no, like proper, like a structured business." And I went, "Mom, like, what would I know about it? I've just come out of the army. I'm doing the personal training thing." She went, "Wow, well, we could do it together, and we could do this like whole holistic approach. Like I've got the mental health nurse and counselling, so I've got the mental side of it. You've got the physical and nutritional side of it, but also your experiences in your previous career where you've obviously had to work on your own resilience and well-being." So we then set that up. We then managed to get a 6-month pilot with an NHS trust, so one of the hospital groups in Birmingham, and that's continued now for over 10 years, where we've been able to expand our portfolio of programs due to my academic career over the last several years.
Talk about your undergrads. I think it was biz management, and then
so was sort of had the business, was doing the personal training, and I thought, for my own credibility, I think I need to know more about business and how to run a business. So I went back to university in 2017, and my partner and we just dropped her son off at university. And so we were driving back, and I said, just have a look at some of the business courses at Worcester University and read some of the modules to me, just, while I'm driving along. So that was Sunday. On the Monday, I went into the university to inquire about joining up to a course in 2018. And he said to me, John Gardner, his name, he said to me, if you can get your funding sorted, you can start next week. I went, John, no offense, but I'm just inquiring about next year. I'm not sure I'm ready. He went, well, have a think about it. And, if you can get it sorted. So I made a couple of phone calls, phoned the accountants, phoned mom, ran it by her. So have we got capacity for me to do this now? And within a week, I'm sat in a lecture room studying business management. And very unintentionally, if you like, although I wanted to learn the back office stuff for business, I was actually able to weave in my dissertation and other learnings. So with my supervisor on my undergrad dissertation, took me for a year 2 module called Leadership Practice and Principles. Dr. Pamela Murray, who supervised me on my dissertation, I was able to weave those into the business as well, working with the NHS seniors, like middle management and senior leaders.
And your first master's was in sports coaching, correct?
Sports coaching, yeah, Chris, yeah. So what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to just be boxed into business. I didn't want people to just look at my background. Again, I don't harp on about the military because I don't want that to be the beacon of my previous experiences, especially having been out of the army now for 13 years. That's sort of just a conversation piece. But equally, I didn't want people to look at my CV and go, oh, yeah, well, you're clearly business. And I thought, well, what masters can I do? Because it's over here in the UK, a master's is seen as a professional qualification. I was like, okay. I was like, well, I've done the personal training, I've done the nutrition, I like working with people. Sports coaching was an option. I thought, I'm going to do that. But as well, there was a placement opportunity during that 12-month master's course where you can work for or do a placement with a company. And the lecturers, Don Vincent was our principal lecturer, said, we would recommend that you don't do it in sports so that you've got a bit more of a wider scope of things that you can do. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I said, I've got my own business. I said, is there an opportunity for me to do the play? Is there any conflicts of interest or anything for me to do that? And he said, no, not at all. He said, as long as you can meet the learning outcomes and the grading matrix criteria, you can do it wherever. So looked into it and ended up doing that placement through the business, but we did it for I did it for a private hospital group based in the West Midlands. It's a national company, but the hospital was based in the West Midlands, and it was working with again senior leaders and the director of the hospital, where we looked at reflective practice. But I brought in coaching skills. So there's a coach that coaching theory, athlete-centered coaching, which is underpinned by Carl Rogers' client-centered approach. And so I wove that into the reflective practice approach for the senior leaders and the director of that hospital group.
What is athlete-centered coaching, if you could summarize it?
So it's basically where the main focus is the athlete itself. So whereas some coaches would want to um, have all the praise and all the glory for the work that is achieved with their clients or their athletes, it is boiling it down and saying, okay, I might be ad-libbing it a little bit because it's been a while since I've looked at the actual literature on it, but in its essence, it's about making it about the athlete or the person that you're working with, and they are the main focus. So how can I help you? What are you struggling with? Let's make sure that anything that you want to achieve is done and to set you up to succeed, not set you up to fail. But at the same time, the coach doesn't take the glory for it.
Working with them and instead of them just telling what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is working with the individual. It's helping them to recognize their internal resources and saying, okay, so for example, I'm 5'6". If I said to a coach, right, I want to be able to do a layup dunk, if that's even a thing, I might be taking two elements of a basketball terminology there, but I want to be able to dunk the ball. They might be like, okay, you need to be able to jump 40 plus centimeters. At 5'6", it's probably not going to happen. So let's be realistic. Like, we can get you involved in the shot, but maybe not dunking the ball. Okay. And that's the same with the athlete-centered coaching, or my approach when I'm working with individuals professionally in the workspace, or when I'm mentoring people. Let's work with what we have. Let's not try and reach for things that are unobtainable.
You had your second master's in business, business psychologist, and then I'd love to touch on the marathons. I think you did
Yeah,
some
yeah.
half,
So
full, and ultra.
yeah, so 2012 was my again, not to keep going back to it, but was my 10-year anniversary of having been in Afghanistan. So I was like, okay, let's do something quite physically extreme over the next 12 months. So I did the Malvern Half Marathon. Now, again, the Malvern Half Marathon for you, Chris, doesn't mean much, but it's 13 miles over the Malvern Hills, which are local hills here in Worcester. They are, just to put it into perspective, they are something like 100 meters short of being a mountain. So that's the undulation of them. That's the elevation of them. They really are quite, for a hill, they really are quite tall. And it was all over the top of those. So we ran all the way to the bottom, all the way over. 6 weeks before, I don't want to get anybody into trouble, but the illness that was going around the world at the time, I'd had that 6 weeks before, and then 2 weeks before ended up developing a chest infection. And people were like, "Are you still going to run the half marathon?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, I am." They were like, "Okay." I was like, "I'm putting one foot in front of the other." So it was a relatively slow time, 2 hours 36. But a few weeks after that, I had my second half marathon, which was Tewkesbury, another local one. Ended up doing that in 2 hours 7. And then ran the Worcester full marathon, so 26.2 miles. Hot, hot, hot. Still recovering, and it took me 5 hours, which was horrendous. And then later in the year, took part in what's called the Oxford Trot. So it's over 40 miles, and you've got it's broke down into legs. So you have to get through to each leg within a certain time in order to be able to get through to the next stage. And I managed to get to mile 32, which was around I think it was either the fifth or sixth leg of the stage of the ultra marathon. And that was 7 hours 15. And I wasn't going to make it to the next one. So I was done. Yeah.
You really learn a lot about just pushing yourself, doing some of those runs when it's just you out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Just you and yourself. you tag up with a buddy, you run a little bit together, encourage each other, and then either they go off or you go off, and then you meet up with somebody else. And yeah. But it is definitely a lot of internal mental battles. Again, David Goggins, big, massive ultra runner. I'd read both of his books, listened to his shows on various podcasts. He talks about going into the cookie jar and just using that as fuel to get you through. So yeah, I'm a big fan of David Goggins as well.
Switching gears a little bit, let's talk about the psychology of nutritional habits.
Okay, yeah. So for me, there's so much out there at the moment. Like, as I say, I'm not going to name other diet approaches directly, but we can put two and two together. So there are the fashionable diets, if you like, or the fads, where they're in trend and then something happens and they're no longer in trend. So are they healthy? Aren't they healthy? Then there's the 90-day extreme. I can get you from this to this. And then there are the weekly check-in ones. So I don't know what's over. Again, I'm not going to name any ones by name, but in the UK, we have several organizations that do weekly check-ins, and they give their attendees a diet plan or an allowance of what they can and can't eat. But I've spoken to people that do that, and they don't learn anything. They don't actually understand what they're eating. They're just told what they can and can't eat. So their psychological relationship with food and habits, it's not really improved, because what they're then doing is they are creating an emotional crutch, either with the food organization, their weekly check-ins, or with the individuals or the promoters of these 90-day, dare I say, crash diets, where you go from one to the other just for that one moment. And then you rebound back up to what you were before, and those other fashionable, trendy diets or fad diets, where, again, if you deviate from them ever so slightly, you will rebound up to what you were before, because they're not learning anything. They're just following. This is do as I say, and achieve it, but don't learn anything. So for me personally, it sort of came to a realization last year. So 2024, July of last year, where a good friend of mine who I've known for many years said to me, "Okay, Alex, this is coming from a place of love. You've put some weight on." And I was like, "No, I'm doing all this activity, and I'm marathon running, and I'm training, and I'm in the gym." And then the realization was that I wasn't out training the bad diet, because psychologically, I was allowing myself to convince myself, one, I didn't look as bad as I did, and two, that what I was eating, I was burning off doing all the activity. And the reality was that just wasn't the case. So I had to then look at my emotional and psychological relationship with food, but also my habits in regards to that food. Because, as I say, all of these images on social media and the magazines and everything else, and the New Year resolutions that don't stick, and my new diet plan. But I only released a diet plan last year, and it's already changed because I didn't stick to it myself, but I stuck to it in the short term now to get ready for the new book and all these things. I was like, where do I start? So I had to go back to the fundamentals, and the simple fundamentals are understanding your calorie requirements and breaking those down into macros. So your fats, your carbs, and your proteins for you, the individual, but not panicking, not thinking I've got to do all this in 90 days. And if I do have a burger or a pizza when I go on holiday or over the weekend, that it's not going to unravel back into those bad habits. So my bad habits had got me up to 90 kilos, so nearly 200 pounds at 5'6". And I was like, yeah, but I train and I lift big. And No. So within 6 months, I was down to 76 kilos. And now, through sustainability and long-term habits and relationships with food, 74 kilos consistently and sustainably. And also my partner, she was panicking about her weight as well because she'd injured her knee skiing last year. And she addressed it using the same habits that I'm using. And she's dropped 10 kilos in 6 months and kept that off. So it's not yo-yoing, it's not rebounding, it's just healthier relationships with food.
And talk about your accountability coaching that you do now.
Yeah, so now what I'm trying to do is take my story to Instagram, and that's McLeod's accountability coaching, and I'm just trying to learn and implement some of the things that I've learned through all of my studies, so that I can have a page on Instagram where people can either see the journey that I've been on and think, oh, well, his weight loss happened in 2024, December 24. He still kept the weight off. These are his habits that he's using. The habits that I'm using aren't sticking. Maybe I can work with Alexander and he can help me for those habits to stick in the long term and sustainably, where I'm not crashing. I'm not doing crash diets. I'm not doing fad diets. I'm not becoming emotionally reliant on an organization to tell me what I can and can't eat. I can learn myself so that I feel better.
Awesome. Yeah, you definitely want to educate, and you're doing that. So appreciate you sharing some of your wisdom with us. You have a lot of it, and it's great to get to know you a little bit better. And you said your Instagram. What's your handle for people that want to
Yeah,
find
so that's
you?
McLeod's accountability coaching. So McLeod, McLeod's accountability coaching.
All right. Well, best always to you, Alexander, and we'll catch up again soon.
That's perfect. Thanks very much for your time, Chris. Yeah, speak soon. Take care.
Thank you.